Good Saturday morning, June 24th, 2023. Wrote a book, Baseball's Top 5 Player List. I was curious to find out which baseball players in the history of baseball, 151-year history, 1871 through 2022, which players landed in the top 5 in certain categories for each season. Just take the top 5 players from each season, pick a category, and see who had the highest stats, highest number. What are the categories I'm looking at? Home runs, obviously. Batting average, runs scored, runs batted in, triples, doubles, singles, total bases, slugging, on base, base on balls, stolen bases, and career hits. I've done 4 videos on the top 5 list. Home runs, who landed in the top 5 the most? Babe Ruth, 16 times. Batting average, who landed in the top 5? Take both leagues, American and National League. Just the 5 players from both leagues, the top 5. Add all the players who play in both leagues and take the top 5. That's what I did. In batting average, Ty Cobb, 16 times, top 5. Runs scored, who made the top 5 the most times? Would you believe Willie Mays? Willie Mays, 11 times, I've got it here. And Ty Cobb and Pete Rose, all 3 of them, 11 times, top 5 runs scored. Runs batted in. Who made the top 5 the most times? Camp Hansen, Babe Ruth, 11 times. Lou Gehrig, 10 times. This video I'm on right now, triples. Do you know which player, baseball player, in the history of baseball made the top 5 in triples for a season the most times? Do you know who? I had to look it up. Had to look at all the stats. Sam Crawford, 11 times. He made the top 5. He also holds the mark for most career triples, 309. Why is he the one? He didn't stop at second base. He wanted a triple when he came to the plate, and he did it 309 times in his career. How about that? But he made the top 5 11 times, from 1902 to 1915. Second, Roger Connor, 7 times, 1882 through 1894. Lance Johnson, have you heard of him? Not in the Hall of Fame. 6 times, between 1891 1896. Ty Cobb, 6 times, 1908 through 1922. Stan Musial, 6 times, triples. Top 5. 1943 through 1951. Willie Wilson, 6 times, 1979 through 1988. He's not in the Hall. Elmer Flick, 6 times, 1900 through 1907. Joe Jackson, Shoeless Joe, 6 times, 1912 through 1920. Paul Waner, 6 times, 1926, 1934. Roberto Clemente, 5 times, 1965 through 1970. Willie Mays, 5 times, 1954 through 1960. Rod Carew 5 times, 1971 through 1978. Dan Brothers, old school, 5 times, 1883 through 1894. And Lou Brock 5 times, 1964 through 1969. That's 14 players. I could only find 14 players that made the top 5 in triples 5 times or more. Obviously, a lot of other players made the top 5 in triples in a season, but maybe they did it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. But I'm looking for guys who did it 5 times or more. Sam Crawford, 11 times, leads. How about that? Sam Crawford. 309 career triples. Ty Cobb had 295 career. Honus Wagner, 252. Jake Beckley, 244. And Roger Connor, 233. Those are the top 5 in career triples. But did you notice that Honus Wagner did not do it 5 times or more, make the top 5 in a season? I looked it up. Jake Beckley didn't do it either. Roger Connor did, though. Roger Connor did it 7 times. He's from the old school era, 1880s. How about Lance Johnson? Hadn't heard of him. He played in the 1890s. He did it 6 times. Another guy, Willie Wilson, not in the Hall of Fame. He was a triples guy, 1979 through 1988. Shoeless Joe Jackson, not in the Hall of Fame, but he 6 times or more made the top 5 in triples. I think it's an interesting stat. Do you know for a season who had the most triples? 1912, a guy named Owen Wilson had 36 triples. Triple is not easy to get. You got to hit in the gap, and you got to keep rounding the base and pass second and go on to third. A lot of guys stop at second for doubles by the fact that, like Tris Speaker had over 700 doubles. But the most triples in a season, 36 by Owen Wilson. Never heard of him. Dave Orr had 31 triples in 1886. Henry Reitz had 31 triples, 1894. Perry Worden, 29 triples, 1893. And Harry Davis, 28 triples, 1897. Those are the top 5 as far as triples in a season. But you notice all 5 of these guys did not do it 5 times or more, make the top 5. The guys who are preeminent as far as triples, you got to give it to Sam Crawford. 11 times made the top 5 in triples. You got Roger Connor, 7. Lance Johnson, Ty Cobb, Stan Musial, Willie Wilson, Elmer Flick, Joe Jackson, and Paul Wainer all did it 6 times or more. Roberto Clemente, Willie Mays, Rod Carew, Dan Brothers, and Lou Brock 5 times or more. And then I couldn't find any other players in the history of baseball. Only 14 of them were able to be in the top 5 combining the American and National Leagues. Not just in the National League. You can make the top 5 if you just play in the National League multiple times. I'm talking about combining the American and National League players. Combine them all together as one unit. Take the top 5 among all those players as far as leading in triples. These are the guys, 14 of them. And did you notice that, like Lance Johnson, Willie Wilson, Joe Jackson are not in the Hall of Fame? See, to make the Hall of Fame, you got to have career numbers, not just in triples, but you got to be in all the categories. You know what's interesting so far? A guy named Ty Cobb. You've heard of this guy, right? I've done home runs, batting average, runs scored, and runs batted in, and now triples. And in all 5 categories so far, Ty Cobb has landed in the top five times or more in all these categories. I've got more categories to cover. I've got doubles, singles. Let's see. Doubles, singles, total bases, slugging, on base, base on ball, stolen base, and hits. I'm going to cover all these categories, see who landed in the top 5. You know what would be interesting to find out? Which players in baseball history landed in the top 5 in all these categories? Are you following me? In all these categories I've mentioned, which player landed in all the categories in the top 5? You know what I found out? I've got it at the end here. I have 13 categories. We got to give special recognition to certain players who landed in the top 5 in all 13 categories at least once. Because a lot of players will land in the top 5 in a certain category, like home runs. Babe Ruth will land in it, obviously. Batting average, he landed in it. But did you notice in triples, Babe Ruth did not land in the top 5. He did in runs scored and runs batted in and batting average and home runs, but in triples, not yet. Or I shouldn't say not yet. He didn't land in the top 5. So we can exclude Babe Ruth landing in all 13 categories. But so far, Ty Cobb has landed in the top 5 in 5 categories so far, at least once. Interesting. At least one time land in the top 5. I'm not talking about 5 times or more. At least one time you make the top 5. Babe Ruth and triples did not do it. Neither did Henry Aaron. He didn't land in the top 5 in triples. But Ty Cobb so far has at least one time. You know who else so far? Jim O'Rourke, old school guy. I've covered 5 categories, and Ty Cobb and Jim O'Rourke at least one time in the top 5. You know who else did it? Tris Speaker, Willie Mays, and Ed Delonte. In this book, as I look through every season from 1871 to 2022, there are 13 categories I'm covering. And if you can make the top 5 at least once in all 13 categories, you're in an elite group. And by looking over all these 13 categories, I found out that Ty Cobb, Tris Speaker, Ed Delonte, Willie Mays, and Jim O'Rourke are the only players, 5 players, are the only players in baseball history to make the top 5 in 13 categories at least one time or more. How about that? Like I told you, in triples, Babe Ruth didn't make the top 5 at least one time. He didn't do it. Neither did Henry Aaron. But Cobb, Speaker, Delonte, Mays, and O'Rourke did. Now we're going to get next video, we're going to do doubles. Which baseball player in the history of baseball's 151-year history since 1871, which player made the top 5 in doubles the most times? I've got it in this book, Baseball's Top 5 list. And we'll get to that next. We'll get to the doubles video next. Thanks for watching. I'm out.